It's a fall day, it's getting cool. Thought I'd build a fire, and oh, it's a little crooked here. Thought I'd build a fire and share some thoughts with you. You know, in the last video that I did, I just touched on this idea that we get upset about things, and being upset about things makes us more upset about them because we feel like we get upset, and we feel like, well, I wouldn't get upset if the thing I'm thinking isn't true. Right? This happens to us all the time, that we're like, I'm super upset about, the elections or whatever, or how people who disagree with me are behaving. Well, we use the fact that we're riled up as a proof element for why we must be correct about being riled up. Because we're upset, we must be right, because if we weren't right, we wouldn't be upset about it. If it wasn't true, we wouldn't be upset. It's kind of how we think. And I talked in my last video about how being upset makes us more upset because we believe that since we're in a riled up state, that would only happen if there was a real reason for it. So I was talking about that in terms of like politics and stuff like that, but I want to talk today in terms of really your identity and sort of the wounded identities that we tend to carry about ourselves because we are riled up. See, this is something I've seen in myself and with my clients. Though everybody has, as far as I can tell, a thing that sort of hypnotizes them when they think about themselves. And by a thing, I mean a bad thing. Right? You know, when somebody kind of crafts the perfect insult, it gets past the person's defenses and just really like upsets them. Or like if you can accuse somebody of something that they're afraid is true about themselves, it gets past all their defenses and they get kind of hypnotized by it. It really, really upsets them. And the same thing happens to us. I feel like all of us have an identity or a belief about ourselves that we're afraid is true and we desperately hope isn't. And when circumstances give us evidence that that thing might be true, or when people accuse us of it, we get hypnotized by it. We get fixated on it and become more and more upset in that way where it sort of feeds on itself. Like for instance, right? For me, when I get into this, I get into it with this idea that I'm doomed. Right? I mean, I did as a participant, I did the Inner King training, which I now run, in 1994. And the issue that I worked at the Inner King training, this is slipping, hang on. The issue that I worked at the Inner King training was this idea that I was somehow doomed, that the universe was designed, that no matter what I did, I couldn't really have what I want. And when I get into like a crazy state now, that's still pretty much what comes back. It's still pretty much what I find myself working on because it's that thing that I'm afraid is true. And when it gets in front of me or when there gets to be any evidence for it, I fixate on it, right? And that happens to all of us. We fixate, we become hypnotized. We actually become enthralled to this idea. We become enthralled with it and enthralled to it. Like we become a slave of it. And the reason when we fixate on it, we can't turn away from it. And the reason we can't turn away from it is because it seems true and we're upset about it. So it's like, if the universe sets itself up so I start to feel like I'm doomed to never have the success I want or whatever, that idea upsets me. And because I'm upset, I fixate on it more. And that makes me more upset. And I think, well, I wouldn't be upset about this idea if it wasn't true. Because if it was a lie, I wouldn't be upset about it, right? And that's the thing we need to start understanding. We become enthralled by ideas that are lies all the time. And about our own identity, there's probably one identity, the thing you're afraid is true about you or about the way that the universe is set up such that your life has to go a certain way. The thing you're afraid about, the identity, you can get fixated on this. And you can tell, like, if there was something that your ex always used to say that really got under your skin, or some repeating pattern you've had in your life that when you start thinking about it, really sort of, you can't disconnect from it. You know, like for me, I'm doomed. You know, other people may have other things where they feel like they can never get what they really want. So here's the thing. When you're enthralled to an idea, you're like I say, you're like a slave to it. There's nothing you can do about it. You're connected to it. So, in most religions, they have this idea that you need to really acknowledge your weakness and your helplessness before the divine. And we don't like to do that. Whoa, got smoke in my eye. We don't like to acknowledge our helplessness and our neediness for the divine, whatever you might call it. However, when you're in thrall with something, with an idea, an identity, you really need to actually acknowledge, wow, I'm helpless. I can't turn away from this, right? And we've all felt this. I'm like fixated on it. I can't do anything about it. It's got me. And so what I suggest you do in this situation is that's when we need to go to whatever your sense of divine is and say, hey, whatever my sense of divine is, something bigger, order of the universe, higher power, whatever you call it, and say, look, I can't turn myself away from this dark identity. I can't. I'm enthralled with it. I need to be rescued. I need to be liberated. I need you to come to me. Right? I do a lot of work teaching men how to get in touch with the real feeling of divine blessing. But there are times when you can't meet it halfway, where you have to say, look, I'm this broken and I'm this helpless. I need you to come all the way to me. It's very humbling to say that to your sense. I need you to bring your love all the way to me. So that's step one when you're enthralled with an identity and getting more and more upset about it. Acknowledge, I'm helpless. I can't seem to change this. And I can't go get the blessing to change it. I need it to come all the way to me. And then the question you would ask in that situation with that is, you'd be like, divine, I need you to come all the way to me with your blessing, and I need you to tell me how you feel about me, even when I'm fixated on this idea that I'm doomed. Even when I can't turn away from this thing that's hurting me. How do you feel about me then anyway? And let yourself feel the love. Let yourself feel it in your body. Some people say it feels like light or it feels like warmth. Usually it's in the chest, but it could go all sorts of places. It could be all sorts of ways. I guess my point is, when you're enthralled to an idea, you can't fix it yourself, but you know somebody who can. And turning to that with humility is the way to get that change to start to happen. So I just wanted to share that with you, and allow yourself to have the humility to pull back that curtain and say, there are times when I get so upset, I can't fix it. What do you have for me, my sense of divinity? How do you feel about me? Even when I know I'm faced some stupid direction, it's some lie that's telling me that that the universe is set up so I can never have what I want. How do you feel about me then anyway? Let yourself feel that love, that mercy, that compassion. Let that shift inside yourself and then get on with your day. So anyway, more on this later. I will talk to y'all later. And I'm just going to sit here and enjoy my fire for a while. Have a good night.